In this week's episode, we talk about everyone's favourite childhood toy, LEGO.
Plus some Nintendo news, from new Amiibos to Nintendo Online titles. I'm Anthony.
And I'm Barry, and this is episode 95 of the Retro Gaming Dads podcast, the podcast for everything retro and retro-inspired.
I blame you.
What'd you blame me for this time?
I blame you because I'm now hooked on Vampire Survivor.
Oh, right. Hey, don't blame me. It's not as if I'm dealing the drugs to you.
No. But it was you who was like, you were playing. I know Sonic the Hedgehog was playing it, but it was you who was playing it mainly. I'm like, I'll give it a try. And yeah, I know you said it before, and we'll say it again, it is such a simple game to go through, but you feel like a boss when you have upgraded weapons, you're just destroying everything.
Yeah, up to the point where you get destroyed.
Oh yeah, death comes in and just...
And then you just think, well, that was a waste of time. I have never once told you to play that game because I know how addictive it is.
Just the thing, because you play it, you're like, okay, actually, I've got those achievements to do, because achievements aren't that hard to do at all.
No, I saw you playing it the other day, and as you mentioned, you do a mission, and you don't even complete the mission. You fail at it, and then it pops up like 5 different achievements.
Yeah, well, I did a mission, so on my lunch again today, I did a mission, and I got 7 achievements. I was like, okay.
Not bad go.
No, not at all. So, yeah, it's a very addictive game, but it's a really, really great game to play, especially for, like a retro style game, as we often do speak about, funnily enough. It's a fantastic game to sink your teeth into, and it's such a simple game. So if you do fancy getting addicted, give it a try.
Yeah, and the fact that it's only, £3.99 if you don't own it, but it's also in Game Pass.
Yes, it is.
It's an absolute bargain. Well, I'm sure you've noticed, unfortunately, I've not been in work the last couple of days.
No, I noticed it was actually really quiet, but sadly it wasn't for any good reasons, unfortunately.
No. Unfortunately, I'd say my eldest, but he's only 5 years old. We had to take him to the hospital, so he's made up that he's got this cool story about going to hospital in an ambulance and spending a night in the hospital. On the other hand, I was in a little tiny bed, cot almost, next to him in the hospital, and the only good thing out of it is we got to play plenty of Mario Kart. So thank God for the Switch, because it was a long, we were in there like 24 hours-ish. It was a long 24 hours.
Now, thankfully, he's okay though, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, he's fine now. He had today off. He was obviously off yesterday because we spent most of it in the hospital still. But he's getting himself psyched up for his birthday party tomorrow, so we'll just have to keep an eye on him.
Oh, good.
But we had as nice of a day as you can, just playing Mario Kart in the
You said
hospital.
it like a holiday in the end. At first, obviously, it was a bit...
Yeah. He thought it was like staying in a hotel.
It was a bit, scared at first, he said, but then he was like, loving it.
Well, that's where I was actually going with the thing about the Switch. That
all right.
Not only to pass the time, but the difficulty he had was with his breathing. And I think more so than anything, he was getting quite panicked by it. But the fact that we had the Switch, it was something that would take his mind off it. It was an absolute godsend. And I think a lot of people forget that, video games, they're not just for idling time away. Like my mum and dad, if they ring me and they go, "Oh, what are you up to?" And I go, "Oh, I'm playing on the Xbox," they're like, "Oh, what are you doing? Wasting time playing on the Xbox and that." And they forget about the benefits they have, like obviously social interaction while we've been in COVID, but just as a distraction for a child when they're in a situation like being in hospital, it's an absolute godsend. I remember very long time ago, I actually had a temporary job helping do a rollout of IT equipment in the NHS. And one of the things that we did do is we actually had these little GameCube stations.
Okay.
There was 4 of them, and we had to set them up in the children's ward. And basically, they had broadband adapters and they were networked together, so they could actually play Mario Kart Double Dash between 4 different beds. And just little bits like that, I thought was really neat in that, but thinking like the massive benefit that gaming can do in situations like that. But once we got back, we were a little bit burnt out on playing Mario Kart.
Yeah.
And I just spent all of yesterday evening and a bit of this morning building Lego.
Who doesn't like Lego?
Well, it depends. Elliot was actually quite good at building quite a lot of it,
Yeah.
but he's got this train set, and as a kid, I never had any Lego that was motorized. I never had any of the Technic or any of the cool stuff like that. Trying to get cables running inside of Lego is a nightmare. The amount of times I've nearly trapped them.
Oh, how many cables do you have to run down it there?
It's only a couple. It's only a couple because it's only the one engine that has the motorized wheels. The rest just get dragged along. But oh gosh, yeah, I'd hate to see what some of the more advanced ones are like. Do you know where you see these scale replicas of like McLarens or Ferraris and that remote control car ones?
Yeah.
But as I'm trying to segue into our first piece of news, Lego have announced some pretty cool, if I may say so myself, pretty cool sets that are coming out this year.
You would think they're cool because they are Sonic the Hedgehog Lego sets, which is, two of your favorite things. So we've got 4 sets coming up, which I do give you. They do look pretty cool. The trailer I thought was a bit quirky, I'd say.
Yeah, it was very odd. So the trailer showing the sets, it had like an animated Sonic Lego figure and a voiceover guy, didn't it?
Yeah. And they were kind of like, they were having conversations throughout it all, and Sonic kept kind of buttoning over the announcer guy. We'll put it in the show notes, so please watch it. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek, I'd say. It's a bit like, I guess it's different than a normal trailer. Let's put it that way.
I think, though, if you saw anything like, well, all the way back to the original Sonic 2 trailer, the US one, they've very often been very, as you say, quirky, but tongue-in-cheek. They never really take themselves very seriously, and quite often they break the fourth wall as well, like this one. I do think that's been something that's maybe not a constant, but a regular thing with Sonic trailers.
Yeah.
This obviously comes on the back of announcing new Mario sets last month for Mario Day. I don't think these are as intricate as the Mario ones, but they look all right.
Maybe they're set to aim a bit more towards the younger generation. I mean, because these are more play sets. These are more...
So which one do you think's aimed more at younger kids? The Sonic or the Mario ones?
Oh, Sonic, sorry.
See, I'd say it was the other way around. I'd say the Mario ones are with the larger Mario figurines. I think these are more budget orientated.
I get what you're saying about budget orientated, but one of them's pretty expensive.
Yeah, but they do start at £25 for the smaller sets. I will give you £95 is a lot, but realistically, it's not a lot in Lego money, is it?
Do you know what? I was thinking the same thing. It's got a fair amount of pieces, and it's Lego. Lego always tends to be pretty expensive.
Yeah, so the 4 sets that we're going to get is the Sonic Speed Sphere Challenge, which is the smallest set and comes in at 292 pieces. Now, this one will be £25 or $35. Comes with a Sonic minifig, a Moto Bug, and a Flicky.
Next up, we've also got Towser's Workshop and Tornado Plane. That is 376 pieces with that. It's £37.99 or $39.99. That includes Sonic, Tails, minifigures, plus a Clucky and a Buzz Bomber.
After that, we've got Amy's Animal Rescue, which is similar size. This is 388 pieces. This comes with an Amy and Tails minifig, plus a Crab Meat and Piggy, Pokey, Flicky.
And last but not least is our budget-breaking £95 one, which is Sonic's Green Hill Zone Loop Challenge. This is a large set of 802 pieces, and this comes with Sonic, Amy, Flicky, Becky, Pocky, Pecky, and Dr. Eggman figures, plus a Chopper and Neutron.
So, there is a decent set. To be honest, I just want the Sonic, Tails, and Amy minifigs.
Yes. I think Towser's Workshop looks pretty cool.
Yeah, they do look all right. I don't know. I maybe am a little bit salty that they're just not as good as the Mario ones that I've seen.
Mm. No, I get it, but we're getting Sonic Lego, and I know you'll end up with something at least of this.
Yeah, even if it's just some of the minifigs. Now, they've always had Lego games. I remember these back as far as like the 90s.
I think I see where you're going with this. Do you reckon they're going to have a Nintendo Lego game with different characters in it at all? Is that what you're thinking?
I don't know. I don't know if they're going to have something like that.
I get what you're saying. I do get where you're coming from. We've already got Mario, and it seems to all be dropping in. So to release a Lego game, I mean, the amount of Lego games are out at the minute, because what we've got, just off my head, you've got DC, Marvel, Harry Potter, and a few others on top of that anyway.
Just forget all of them. Do you remember
Yeah.
Lego Dimensions?
Oh, yeah, which literally had anything, everything.
You could play Sonic in Ghostbusters with E.T. as your second player.
Yeah.
You could mix it up so much. You had Batman, Superman, you had all sorts of different characters. But going back to Mario, we've had various different Mario games or spin off of the Mario series. So we've had Yoshi's Woolly World, where everything was made of yarn. We've had Paper Mario, where everything's been either cut out or origami. So would a Lego Mario title be completely unheard of?
Oh, no, definitely not. That would actually get them made the most sense rather than going for a woolly or a paper crowd. Do you know what I mean? It's one that's all the way around.
Yeah. And we've already seen Mario in Minecraft. You know,
Yes.
it's nearly there. It's basically digital Lego.
No, you're right, and I do get where you're coming from. You're thinking along the right stream, and as I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they did release some sort of game, Lego game.
Yeah. Because the thing is, they could actually do this similar to how they done Lego Dimensions. Imagine you had a whole range of new Lego Mario Amiibos that when you stamp them on, it puts that character into the game. I don't know if this whole toys into game fad is burnt out now. I know that we do occasionally get some Amiibos getting released, one of which we'll talk about in a moment.
Yeah.
But it might be quite lucrative.
I do. I think myself that the kind of toys and games is gone. Skylanders, that's basically gone. Starfield didn't do particularly well. I do enjoy the game, but didn't do particularly well. Lego Dimensions, that very quickly went down. Do you know what I mean? It's just they're not really around anymore. But not just for them. I think a lot of games which incorporate, I guess, an interaction with an external thing to use for the console is kind of gone. You know, Rock Band's gone and stuff like that. So a lot of people want to just play just with the controller, I guess.
See, I think the problem a lot of these toys to life, or what, I can't remember exactly what they called them, had is they weren't cross-generational. So you had Skylanders. Now, you could play Skylanders and you could use your same figures, whether it was an Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3 or a Wii U. But as soon as you went across to Xbox One, most of them didn't work. I think if you want to make these sorts of ecosystems, you need to do it the way Nintendo's done. One of the few things Nintendo's done well is you can buy a Super Mario Amiibo
all across them all.
Exactly. You can take it cross games, cross devices, across generations. I can use my Sonic Amiibo in Yoshi's Woolly World, and that's nothing to do with Sonic. But I can use it on my Wii U, my 3DS, and my Switch.
And like I said, the amount of games that you can use it in, it's hard to find a game you can't use it in, shall we say. It's most games incorporate Amiibos in some way to get some, if it's a small little bonus or costume, or there's so many different ways to utilize it. And so then if they're to then put a game where, I mean, you've already got a bunch of Amiibos, just release a game where you can scan your Amiibo and play your Amiibo character in it instead.
Yeah, because worst case, some games, even if they don't detect the Amiibo as something specific, will still give you maybe a bit of in-game currency or a health potion, you know, something very generic as a reward just for scanning that Amiibo.
Like I said, it's Nintendo's done well. with the Amiibos because they are so versatile, shall we say, across the games and across the consoles.
Well, as we alluded to a moment ago, you've actually seen a new Amiibo that's been announced.
Yes, and I actually think it looks really cool. So we've got a new Zelda Amiibo in the form of Link, and he's got some arrows and a quiver on his shoulder, on his hip, and a sword in his back with a cape flying out. And I don't know what he's doing with his hand. It's like a force palm sort of thing.
Yeah, his hand looks like it's been corrupted or something. I did notice this in the trailer, that something seems to have happened to his hand and his arm. So maybe that's where he gets his powers from in the game or something. I'm not sure. The stance, it does look quite a dynamic stance, to be honest. I think it looks pretty cool.
It does. It's very forceful. He's there sort of, it looks like he's in the middle of thrusting himself forwards. And so that's why his cape's kind of like floating backwards as he's doing it. I think it looks really cool. It's Amiibo that I would like to have. And as with any sort of Zelda game, it comes with quite a few bonuses. So Nintendo have announced that when you scan it in, you get weapons, materials, and a new glider skin. But it's not just the new Amiibo. There's also 3 previous Amiibos, which is Zelda and Loftwing from Skyward Sword, Link Majora's Mask, and Link Rider from Breath of the Wild. They will also give you glider skins, as well as every time you scan it, because I think you can scan it once a day, you get items as well.
Right. I was just wondering that whether it was a one-off or something that you could just keep spanning.
No, something you can keep spanning, because we have a Link, and when you scan it for the first time, it gives you a horse. And then every time after that, it just gives you an item chest with, like I said, weapons or items, stuff that you can use.
But this is exactly what we were just saying with the Amiibos, that they're completely game and generation agnostic.
Yes.
So I noticed that you've listed that pretty much any Legend of Zelda Amiibo, possibly every single one, can be scanned for at least some materials or some other bonus.
Yes, they can. And I do hope they do expand it to other Amiibos, because in Breath of the Wild, if I scan the Yoshi Amiibo we have, that also gave a chest of items. So I hope they kind of go down that same trend, but let's hope it expands a bit more.
Well, hopefully they don't repeat the mistake that they done with Skyward Sword, where one of the game's mechanics was actually locked behind buying the Amiibo.
Oh, I didn't realise that.
Yeah, I believe if you don't have the Amiibo, at least initially, you couldn't fast travel. So you needed to scan the Amiibo to be able to unlock the fast travel option.
That's a bit cheap. Let's hope they have fixed that.
I know, it's shocking. Now, before we get on to the rest of our Nintendo news, I'd like to say a massive thank you to our Patreon subscribers, Short Gizmo and Bobby Socks. As always, your patronage is very much appreciated. Now, if you'd like to help out the podcast, you can do, and the quickest and easiest way to do so is by leaving us a review on your favourite podcasting app. It only takes a minute, and best of all, it's completely free.
Or, if you're able to, you can support the podcast further from only £1 per month through either Spotify or Patreon. In return, you will receive an ad-free version of the podcast and get a shout out on our next episode. Following from last week, we spoke about some controversy we had, didn't we?
By controversy, do you mean I was being ripped to shreds on YouTube?
Yes, I do.
Yes, so Advance Wars 1 and 2 reviews are starting to come out just ahead of its actual release, and it's getting pretty good reviews.
In all fairness, we never said it wouldn't get good reviews.
No, not at all.
About the price.
Yes. Now, I'm still holding on to the belief that this game is not worth £50, but it's still a great game. And it seems that the Metacritic score, it's currently on 58 reviews with an average of 83 out of 100. So it looks like this game's going to be a really good game. However, I'm fairly certain that's what the old games scored anyway.
And as this is it's a reskin, basically, isn't it? It is just a reskin.
Essentially, yeah. It looks like it'll play almost one for one with the original Game Boy Advance games, with a couple of quality of life improvements, such as being able to zoom the map out or fast forward through the battle scenes, but nothing that's really game breaking in either a good or a bad way.
So £50. It sounds like it should be a bit less. As we've spoken about before, maybe a £30 game, but that doesn't take away from the fact it's a great game and it's scoring well. You would, if you can like to give this a try at some point, and we can have a bit more of a playthrough and review, I guess, from yourself.
Yes, but I know exactly what I'm going to get with this game. As I've said before, the original Advance Wars was the very first Game Boy Advance game I got. And it was the only game I had for a couple of weeks at least, maybe a couple of months. I hammered this game. I do not think I will play this and go, oh, that's changed. That's extra. Oh, that's cool. I think it will be exactly the same. And you said it's a reskin. Now, I'm probably going to get ripped to pieces for this, but I preferred the original graphics over these 3D models.
Well, that's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with preferring a original game that you used to play when you were younger, because it kind of gives you a nostalgic feeling to play.
It's not even the nostalgia with this one.
Okay.
I just don't think they have any charm. The original graphics...
You're going to get ripped to shreds.
The original graphics, the little pixel guys, had charms to them. But the remake, it just...
takes it away from him.
Yeah, it just loses the charm of the infantry. The vehicles aren't too bad. It's more the infantry that I've got issues with.
So there is a few notable improvements that we can speak about. So they have fully featured remakes of both the first Advance Wars titles, as we spoke about. They've updated the design of the COs, and quality of life improvements have been added, as you said, like the zoom and the ability to fast forward scenes.
But that's it. Do you know what I would have much rather had? So, just say a £35 release of this game is completely off the table. Fair enough. They have to charge £50 for some reason. I would rather have a Wars collection. Stick in the original Advance Wars 1 and 2, as it was.
And these two as well.
Maybe with some of the quality of life improvements, like being able to fast forward through certain scenes, like the battle scenes. But on top of Advance Wars, why not give us Famicom Wars, Game Boy Wars, Super Famicom Wars, Battalion Wars? So give us the other games in the series as a collection, a bit like the Atari 50th anniversary, but with the Wars collection. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying give us every single one. I think the DS titles like Days of Ruin would probably be maybe a bit too much work to try and get across onto the Switch.
I guess you could have justified more bang for your buck if you got more games with it, just in the original state.
Yeah, and not only that, if they translated Famicom Wars and Game Boy Wars and that'll be the first time that they ever got released in the West. Because the first title in the series we ever got was Advance Wars. That's why, to us, we know it's the Advance Wars series, whereas in Japan, as far as I'm aware, it's called Nintendo Wars.
Oh, so releasing a game called Nintendo Wars wouldn't be that far-fetched in regions like Japan.
You could still call it something like the Advance Wars collection or something.
Yeah, but it's,
maybe have the Famicom and Game Boy titles as unlockables for if you get so far through Advance Wars 1 and 2. The more unlocks rather than core part of the game or something. But I'd much rather that, to be honest, than what we got. I know I've said I won't pick it up, but I probably will pick it up physically. However, not until it's on a sale somewhere.
Yeah.
Unless this drops to like $29.99 on Amazon or something.
It'll get traded in somewhere.
It's out of the price that's, I wouldn't say an impulse buy, but where I'd be willing to spend the money on it and be happy with the purchase.
Knowing you'll walk into somewhere like flipping cash converters and it'll be like, £10.
Oh, if I see it cheap, honestly, at £10, if I don't get it, there's something wrong with me. Even at £30, I think it's worth that, but I just don't think I'll pay any higher than that.
Okay. So, have you finished bashing it? Is there any negatives we need to go into this?
No, the only negative I have is the price. I'm not a fan of the art style. It's not horrific, but it's not bad. I just think it's a little bit generic in some parts.
All right. Well, there is the opinion that we have so far.
Yeah.
If you feel like Barry's wrong, let him know, but he'll still think he's right, though.
No. I'm not saying I'm right.
No.
Everyone's allowed their own opinion. You just tell me I'm wrong, I'll just dig the hole deeper and stay in it.
Plant his feet more and be like, no.
Yeah, that's the one. That's
No.
the one. It's my opinion. If I get the game, I might get the game and go, do you know what? I'm wrong. This is definitely worth it. But I'm fairly certain I
you're
won't.
Not. I don't think so.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So now that I've riled up a portion of people on YouTube, shall we move on to the next bit of news?
Yes, and we're now going to dive into some Nintendo Online expansion pass games. So we have 4 new games coming. I only know one of them.
Now, just really quickly, these are coming to the Mega Drive or Genesis part of the Nintendo Online expansion pack.
Yes.
I think a lot of people forgot that Sega Mega Drive games were actually in there.
In all fairness, I did.
Because we always hear, oh, there's new Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, N64, SNES games. And I don't know how often it is that they actually get new Mega Drive games on there.
Well, last thing we spoke about was obviously the Game Boy games and that came out.
And not long ago, we got Pokemon Stadium as well for the N64.
Yes.
So they are regularly adding new games. Now, I'm going to have a guess. Out of these 4 titles, the only one that you've ever heard of is Pulseman. Flicky?
No.
Kid Chameleon?
No.
Surely you've never heard of the uncommon and rare hidden gem on the Mega Drive known as Street Fighter 2.
Bizarrely enough, that's the only one I know.
All right. Oh, it's a bit of a deep cut there. So, for adequate games, they're all decent. Flicky's probably me least liked of the titles.
Okay.
Just because it's quite an early game. It was based on an arcade and it's very simple. Although Flicky has actually been mentioned twice in this podcast so far.
Oh yes, yeah, we did mention him twice in during the Lego. I completely forgot.
Yeah, because he went on to bigger and better things by being captured by Dr. Robotnik in Sonic the Hedgehog.
So then he jumped ship from his own game and joined Sonic.
Yeah, so there you go. Fliggy's origins, I guess this game could be classed as. So in this game, you basically go around, collect little chicks, and you've got to get them to the end while avoiding cats. That's pretty much it.
Look, look at standard platformer.
It's your normal 80s arcade sort of. Now, the next game, before anyone lynches me for it, I'm not saying it's a bad game, but I really dislike, is Kid Chameleon.
Is that the one where I was watching? Wasn't he jumping off the walls and climbing up around, picking up items and that, trying to stop things from attacking him?
In the game, he actually gets pulled into some sort of like VR system, and you know he's cool because he's got sunglasses and a leather jacket on. Typical like 90s attitude sort of character. You actually pick up different helmets, and depending on what helmet you're wearing, you transform into that character. So there's like a tank character, there's one that can climb up walls, one that can run through barriers, one that has a sword, can jump higher. You know, it's a whole load of different characters. Now, Phil actually loves this game, but I don't.
Not your cup of tea at all.
No, not at all. It's a platformer, and do you know what it actually is? I think it's the sounds, because the Mega Drive has a library of sounds. I think it's called Gems, and they basically make it sound like every sound effect is some sort of fart.
Do you know what? I think so. I understand what you're saying. I remember watching it. It was like blum, 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 blum,
yeah, like,
blum, as it's going around, and it was like,
it's like really bad sound effects. And as soon as I hear them sound effects, that puts me off a game straight away. And I think that's my biggest issue with it.
Okay, just because it sounds like farts.
Wait, as odd as it sounds. Now, the next one is a really good game, and one that, unfortunately, we never actually got here. Pulseman. This was actually made by Game Freak before Pokemon.
Okay.
And it reminds me a little bit of Rocket Knight Adventures, which, as I'm sure over these podcasts I've talked about, I really enjoy. I wouldn't say it's good as Rocket Knight Adventure, but it's got a lot of elements in it. So you can turn into a electrical orb and bounce off walls to get to higher platforms or navigate around mazes.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty good game. Graphically, it looks very nice as well, especially for the Mega Drive. And our final game is one that I completely trounced you on last time you were around here. Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition.
I can't do combos. Give me Tekken any day, and I'll easily give you a whooping on that. But something about Street Fighter, or I think any game where you're just fixed and you can only go left or right, I don't thoroughly enjoy.
I give you a whooping on Dead or Alive. That's 3D.
No, I give you a good run for your money. I don't
on Dead or Alive.
Yeah.
Oh, poor Anthony. He's so delusional.
On Naruto's give me. Yeah,
that's because I have no idea what's going on there.
Well, yes. On this,
I would not call Naruto a fighting game. Definitely not a one-on-one. It's like 3-on-3 arcade. I don't know. Sometimes it feels like it's completely RNG, and we all know how that hates me anyway. But yeah, 4 new titles. So if you are paying for the Nintendo Online expansion pack, you can actually pick these up as of here in this podcast.
Yes. Last but not least, we've got... It's a game that looks fantastic and looks better than a remake that might be coming out.
So last week, we talked about the possibility of Jet Set Radio getting a remake.
Yes, we did.
We didn't have an awful lot to go off. We had a very small... 5-second video, and we were saying we do not like the way. Well, I was saying I do not like the way it looks.
I got behind you. I could have put up with it, but just having the normal cartoony graphics would have been better.
Yes, and I don't know why we didn't mention this. I'd forgotten about this because it's been about a year or two, I think, since we saw the original trailer for this. But Bomb Rush Cyberpunk was actually shown off at a Nintendo Indie World showcase last night.
Yes, and we will put the trailer into the show notes. But me and Barry watched this last night and we're speaking about it. We're like, if you put this in front of us and said, that's your Jet Set Radio, we'll be like, oh yeah, it is. It looks just like it.
It does. It looks like it came straight from the Dreamcast or the original Xbox, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And... I mentioned this to you. I do not see why Sega didn't see this game and think, do you know what? We'll just pay them to rebrand it as Jet Set Radio Future 2 or something.
Yeah, we'll license it and be like,
exactly.
We don't have to make our own game. Here you go.
Well, they've already done that in the past. They've done it with Sonic Mania. They've done it with Streets of Rage 4. So it's not something that's alien to them. If this comes out physically, I'm definitely getting it physically.
Oh yeah, it looks amazing, and this will give us the nostalgia feel that we need. With the graphics, with the gameplay, it looks amazing. And like you said, it looks like it's been pulled out.
Yeah, it looks like they've got Jet Set Radio Future and Tony Hawk's When It Used to Be Good, and just smashed them together. So it's got the same sort of movement around the city, but it's got the trick system from Tony Hawk's where you can chain them together. Yes. And it looks really good. Now, the trailer they shows you doing some graffiti, again, like Jet Set Radio, but doesn't actually tell you much about the story. There is, however, another trailer that went up, which was Japanese only, and it's a story trailer. Now, I tried to watch it and translate it, and either I completely misinterpreted what this trailer is trying to say, or the game is absolutely batshit insane.
Yeah, because I've read the show notes earlier, and I was like, what the heck is this story?
Yes. So, first of all, this game is coming out in August, so we haven't actually got that long to wait.
No.
I would like to tell you my interpretation of what the story is and see how close I am when this actually comes out.
Please do.
So, my interpretation is you're a character, a graffiti artist, nonetheless, called Red. Ooh. Now, through some series of unfortunate events, he loses his head. Quite literally. Someone takes his head, replaces it with some sort of robotic head, and is holding his head hostage unless he can defeat the 5 gangs in the city.
what is that? What is that for a story?
I don't know.
It's a new story you've never heard of. Talk about ingenuity, being like, do you know, how can we make a story that's going to absolutely make people go, huh? But then be cool.
Well, yes. So either I've completely misunderstood, or actually, in all fairness, I am quite sleep deprived from staying at the hospital with Elliot the other night. So maybe there wasn't even a trailer. Maybe this is some sort of like hallucination, yeah. But I would be quite curious to see how close that brief description is of the actual game when it gets released. And putting my money where my mouth is, as I said last episode, where if they did release a new Jet Set Radio, I'd probably have to buy it just to support it for the potential to get a continuation of the series or whatever. This game, I'm definitely going to buy it.
I was about to say, this isn't just to support it, it just looks good.
If I want to see another Jet Set Radio, I need to pay to support this for two reasons. One, because they've basically made the next Jet Set Radio by lots of it. And two, it'll show Sega that this is what people want. They don't want a gritty remake or anything like that. They want bright, colourful, really good music, and maybe some people getting decapitated along the way.
Losing a head.
Yeah. So I'll definitely get this. Whether it's digital or physical just depends whether or not there's a physical edition coming out.
Yes. Now, in the game, you will be able to use skateboards, BMXs, and, of course, inline skates.
Yeah, it wouldn't be right if they didn't include inline skates.
No, not at all.
And as we mentioned before, the way you can chain tricks together, doing so actually builds up like a boost meter. So it looks like some of the characters got like little turbines on the back and they just go flying once they activate it. So this looks like it'll be maybe needed to get to some high up locations, launch yourself off a ramp, land on a building or something like that. So hopefully there'll be a bit more verticality in the cities, which is something that Jet Set Radio Future actually introduced.
Do you reckon, from the sounds of it, if you have got 5 gangs to defeat and take over the city and that, do you reckon this would be quite a big free roam map to go around? So not stages, it will be just a big map.
I haven't got a clue because it was similar layout in Jet Set Radio. And the way that worked is there was like an overall map, but each stage was locked off to a small area of that map.
Got you.
So sometimes you might have to return to it, but I think that's probably how it'll work. Now, the only disappointment I have with this game is that it is only single player.
That's a shame.
I was hoping for at least 2 player, a bit like Jet Set Radio Future.
Yeah, so you can cruise around and take them on together.
Yeah, sometimes it's just fun experiencing a game with someone else, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference playing a game with someone else. Like, for me, if they've got the opportunity to put multiplayer in any game, I want them to. Multiplayer definitely makes any game better for me.
See, that's where I disagree. Some games I do think are better without multiplayer.
Games, but majority of games, well, this especially, should be multiplayer.
I did have a look on the Nintendo website and it is listed as single player only.
Oh, okay. Now, it's nice to have an update to a game that we are looking forward to, and it's coming out soon. But following on from this is the end of this week's episode. If you'd like to find out more about anything mentioned, you can view the full show notes at retrogamingdads.com. We have been in Retro Gaming Dads, and we'll see you next time.